Today I'm going to take a look at this trail camera that I recently purchased from Amazon. And you can see on the box here, these are the basic specs. 12 megapixel, which I believe is software or firmware enhanced. I don't think the CCD is really 12 megapixel based on the research I did. I think it's only 5 megapixel and it uses some kind of enhancement to make it act like it's 12 megapixel. Then you can see IP54 waterproof rating. Probably questionable whether it meets that or not, but you know, I guess it's designed, you know, to be left outdoors. 2.4-inch LCD for reviewing pictures. 32 gigabyte SD card is supposed to be included, and the sensor angle is 120 degree on this. Now I'll take a look at some of the other selling points here on the camera, on the box rather. And you can see there it explains the 5 megapixel sensor with 12 megapixel interpolation, and then it goes through all the other specs here for the camera. You know, some of this is probably a little bit overhyped, but a coworker actually bought a very similar camera recently, and I've seen the pictures it takes, and they're quite adequate, and he's happy with his, so I decided to pick one up myself. Okay, so I'll just open the box here for the first time and see what's inside. Okay, the first thing we have here is an instruction booklet, and still no mention of the actual manufacturer. I believe this thing is sold under a few different manufacturers. I bought this thing, I think it was sold under the name Senwow, but the one that my coworker bought was called Crenova or something like that. But I think there's a few different names that are applied to this thing, but they're probably all the same and made in the same factory. Anyway, here is the camera, and you can see I had it upside down, just in a plastic bag. There's the actual camera itself, and I'll pull the box away here. And here is the SD card that it came with. And let's see, some other goodies here. I'm not sure what some of this stuff is. I'll have to look in the manual, but it looks like some mounting hardware of some sort. And it also came with some kind of remote cable. Looks like a USB to RCA style jack. Not sure what that would be for. Okay, after I shot that last clip, I did realize that there was more in the box here, and as you can see, underneath the side of the cardboard there is a regular USB cable and the strap for mounting this thing to a tree. Okay, so from the looks of it, there are some protective pieces of Mylar over all of the lenses here. And it looks like this up here are the infrared LEDs, and then these are the PIR sensors. So I'll pull these off, and it looks like there's one over the actual camera lens here too. Oh, I got it. Okay, so overall it looks fairly decent so far. I don't know if this thing would survive a hurricane, but it does look like it would be able to be outside. It does seem to have a kind of a tongue and groove type gasket, but this isn't rubber, so it's not actually sealed, but it is protected. And it looks like there's another protector on the internal LCD screen. No, I guess it was just that. Okay, so here's the inside, and you can see the LCD screen and the control buttons. And it looks like there are some perforations here, probably for a speaker or something along those lines. Down here on this surface, we have the SD card slot, and we have a USB connector, and we have an off test on switch. And there shouldn't be any batteries in this, so I don't expect it would turn on. And then let's see, what else do we have down here? There's some sort of rubber plug I'm not sure if that's for some sort of external power or charger. I guess I'll have to look at the manual. And then down here it looks like it has a regular camera mount, which is kind of interesting. This jack down here is for an external power supply, as you can see in the manual there. And the manual explains what the power requirements are and the size of the connector that you would need to plug into that. Okay, so interestingly enough, it came with some sort of plate mount. You can see here's the plate, and there's even some hardware that you could use to, I guess, put this into like a drywall. This looks like one of those expandable drywall anchors, although it's a little different than anything that, you know, I've usually seen. But they look like they would be effective. There's a few screws in there, and then this could be screwed to a piece of drywall, or you could screw it to a piece of wood. And then it's got this swivel anchor here, which one end would go into that mount on the bottom that I showed earlier, and then the other mount would screw into here like this. So that's a little different than I expected. I thought I was going to get a strap mount to strap around a tree. Okay, over here on this side there is a finger tab that I'm just going to pull down and pull this cover off, and you can see there's the battery compartment, and that'll accept 8 AA batteries. And from what I understand, you only need 4 to run the camera, but for longevity's sake, I guess they recommend that you put 8 in there to increase the life if you're going to leave this thing outside for a long time. Okay, as you can see, I opted to load 8 rechargeable batteries in there for now. These batteries are not freshly charged, so I figured I could probably use all 8 instead of just the 4. Next thing I'll do is install the SD card that came with it. And this is probably not the best SD card you can buy, but I'm sure it's fine for this application. Actually, before I do that, what I will do is put the battery cover back on so no batteries go flying out, and I'll just load this in. Okay, so with the batteries in place, I'm going to take a look at turning the camera on, but I've noticed there's an off, a test, and an on position, and right now of course the switch is in the off position. The test position, according to the manual, is used for reviewing any of the pictures that are on the camera through the LCD screen and making the setups and all that sort of thing. And the full on mode is you know, for the camera to be on and functional. So I'm going to put this in test mode, and you can see it fired up, and there's a picture of a deer and initializing the memory, and it looks like the camera is active. You can see, you know, some stuff going on through the LCD screen there. So okay, so I think I'll just go through the menu settings and kind of the operation of setup and changing some of the features of this camera now. So the first thing that I'll do is go into menu mode by pushing the menu button here, and you can see a menu comes up on the screen. And I'll bring this a little bit closer to this camera so that you can see that a little bit better. But before I do, I'll just kind of look at these buttons. There's some arrow buttons for navigation. There is a replay button, as you can see here, a shot button, which I think is for taking manual pictures and videos, and then an OK button. So I'll bring this closer to the camera so that you can see the menu, but you may not be able to see the buttons as I push them. Okay, so in menu mode, I'm going to use the down arrow to go to the first item in the menu here, which is mode. Once I get on mode, I'm going to push the OK button at the lower right, and you can see it brings up the selections. I can do camera, video, or camera and video. I think for now I'm going to leave it on camera and just experiment with the camera function. The next item is photo size, and again, from the package it's clear that this is a 5 megapixel CCD, and that any other resolutions are interpolated through firmware. Whoops. So I'm going to push the OK button, and you can see we can choose 5, 8, or 12. And I'm going to live on the wild side and pick 12, although I don't really know that that's going to do much to enhance the picture quality. I'm going to try it anyway just to see what it looks like. Let's see, video size. If we were in video mode, we could change from 1080p, 720p, WVGA, and standard VGA. I'm going to leave that on 1080p as well. The card in this thing is big enough that I think we can handle that sort of thing. But if you had a smaller card or something like that, you could switch to a lower resolution. Picture number, let's see. Oh, okay, I guess when the camera fires, you can have it select to take 1 picture, 2 pictures, or 3 pictures. And again, why won't that go to 3? Well, it looks like I'm pushing the down arrow, but it won't let me go to 3. And that could be because of the resolution, I'm wondering. So I'm going to leave it on 2 for now. And just for the heck of it, I'm going to go back. I'm going to select the 5 megapixel resolution. Go back to picture number and see if I can choose 3 now. Yeah, I can choose 3 now. So if you wanted a 3 photo burst, you would need to go to 5. Anything less, I guess, is going to require 2. So I'll switch this back to 12 and keep going through the list. So video length, that looks configurable as well. And again, I bet if you choose a lower resolution, you can go for a longer video time. But you can see here, I'm not sure. I wonder how many seconds you can do here if it tops out. Whoop. And you can see there, it looks like 10 minutes is the longest option. So I'm not going to choose 10 minutes. I'm going to go back and choose, I don't know, maybe 20 seconds. 20 seconds seems like it might be a good choice, so I'll pick that. Let's see, interval. Interval is probably the interval between pictures or videos once this thing is tripped. And 1 minute is the default. Let's see. And we can go in second intervals. So I'm actually going to bring that down to 30 seconds. But I'm curious what the longest interval is that this thing offers, so I'm going to scroll all the way up. And it looks like 60 minutes is the longest interval. So I'll go back to 30 seconds here, which I think is pretty good to start with. And let's see, timestamp, you can turn the timestamp on or off. And I don't care for timestamps on my pictures, so I'm going to turn that off. Okay, time switch. I consulted the manual, and I believe that that's actually what we would consider a timer. And yeah, once I set that to on, you can see that you can change the turn-on time for the camera. You can set a start and stop time, rather. So if you wanted this thing to only be active, between certain times, and taking photos between certain times, or video between certain times, you could set that. But I'm going to turn that off and leave it on all the time for now. Let's see, you could set a password if you were concerned about security, I guess. Okay, serial number set you could use to assign a particular number or name or combination of characters, I guess, to a picture, so that you could kind of organize those better after you remove them from the camera. Okay, the time-lapse feature will force the camera to take pictures within the set intervals between the times that the timer is set. So in other words, you could set the timer for a certain time. the camera would come on and then it would just start snapping pictures at the specified intervals. So if you had the 3-picture burst mode and set for a 60-second interval, it would take 3 pictures every 60 seconds, whether or not it detected motion from the sensors or not. Okay, the next setting, the side PIR, can be turned on or off, and that would be useful if you didn't want such a wide range of sensing going on, I guess. So if there were things on the periphery that were triggering the shot and you didn't want those to trigger the camera, you could turn off the side PIRs and narrow up the field a little bit. Okay, this next flashlight mode, I don't see it in the manual. I'm not exactly sure what it's for, but I assume that is some sort of flash. It probably flashes the LED when the picture is taken, but I'm not sure. I'm going to leave that on auto. Okay, the next setting is the language setting, and I'm going to leave that on English, of course, but there appears to be a fair number of languages that you can choose from. Let's see, format, I believe, is for formatting the SD card, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that just to try it, since this SD card has nothing on it anyway. And you can see it appears to be doing that, and it appears to have done it. And I've just noticed here that the camera now appears to have low battery, so we'll try and finish this thing quickly. I guess those batteries weren't as charged as I thought they were. So where were we? Okay, set clock. We could go in and we could set the time on this, date and time, if we wanted to. And you can see the default there is set to January 1st, 2016, and you can see that this has probably been active for about 24 minutes now. But I'm not going to bother setting the clock. I'm not too worried about that. Default set, this would be if you wanted to bring the camera back to its initial state. You would go in there and presumably hit yes, and it would reset the cameras to its default settings. Auto power off, I'm going to leave that setting at its default of 5 minutes, or you could turn it off if you wanted. And let's see, record volume, I'll leave that at its default setting, but it looks like you can change that, whoops, if you wanted to. And then there's also a playback volume, and I'll leave that at its default as well. And it looks like the last setting, this system setting, is just for information. So firmware version, you can see there's the firmware version, and it looks like if we needed to update the firmware, we would go back in and do a firmware update. So if we push, it says there, if we push the menu button, it'll go back, and now we're out of the menu and back to the normal operation mode. Okay, so to enter normal operation mode, I'm going to flip that over to on, and the camera should now be ready to use. Okay, so I went inside for a little while and came back outside and had the camera set up over here on the bench, and let's see if it picked anything up. So I've gone into test mode, and now I'll push the replay button, and you can see it captured 4 pictures, and that one is me walking towards the camera, and that one doesn't appear to be anything. There's a little brown spot there in the picture. I'm not sure if it's visible in the camera or not here, but that's just some leaves. So there must have been a bird or something flying through that it picked up on. And it looks like picture number 2 is the same thing. I don't quite see what it is, at least not on the LCD screen here. And then picture number 3 is me again, and 4 is me just a little bit closer. So it looks like everything's working. So I think what I'm going to do is play around with the settings a little bit and maybe try some video as well and see what that looks like. Okay, so I had decided to set the camera into picture and video mode for the next test, and you can see there I am again. There's picture number 5, and I've got my cordless drill in my hand, and there I am again a little bit closer, and then in this shot is when the video started taking place. So what looks like happens is if it's in combined mode, it takes the pictures first and then the video. So I was kind of close to the camera once the video started, and I'll try and play that back. If I just push OK, it should play. And there is audio. I'm talking in there, but it's very low. I'm not sure where the mic pickup is on this camera, and I know I've got the playback volume on this set fairly low, so you can see that it recorded a little bit of a clip there. I'm mostly not in it because I walked away, but it did pick up a video, 20-second video. So then got a couple of more shots. There I am walking again, and another similar video where I'm real close to the camera, so all you can see is my stomach. And again, I walked away, and the clip continued on. So it seems like everything is working as intended. So now I'm just going to find a place to mount this thing. Okay, so now that I've established that the camera is functional, it's time to choose a location for it. And one of the things that's pretty handy with this camera is that when you have the camera in test mode, which is what I used for all the menu settings and the playback settings, there's a couple of LEDs on the front there that will light up and indicate whether or not motion is being detected by the sensors, and I'll explain that in a minute. So as I start to move, you can see there that the bottom red LED lit up, and what that indicates is that motion is being detected from the straight on sensor, which is this one here. If you see the blue LED light up, that means that it's detecting motion from the side sensors, one or the other. It doesn't differentiate between sides. It just tells you that it's picking something up off the side. So you can use that to kind of find a good position where you want to put the camera, and you'll know whether or not the camera is detecting motion. When the camera is in full-on normal mode, those lights won't light up, as they could distract the wildlife that you're trying to capture. So this is a good way to know whether or not the camera is set up and detecting motion where you think the activity might be. Okay, you can see here I've got the camera mount screwed to a block of wood, a piece of 2x4 rather, and I've got it set up on the boulder here and just kind of leveled off roughly, and pointing over here at this part of the yard, like I said, where I've seen most of the wildlife. So I'm going to leave it here for now. This isn't something I'd want to leave out like this, in a windstorm. I think it would probably tip over pretty easy, but we're not expecting any weather overnight. So I'm going to leave this here. I'm going to set it up and let it run, and see what kind of pictures I get. Okay, I'm about to lose the battery in this camera, so I'll wrap the video up here. That's going to just about do it for the setup of this Senwow trail camera. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to leave a comment or subscribe, feel free to do that as well. Thanks for watching.